Picture this. Superman flies into a black hole and spends 20 years of his life, or the equivalent of watching all 9 seasons of The Flash, helping people who don't want to be helped. This is the story of how Superman became so lost that not even Google Maps could bring him home. Superman Lost opens to $1 million in the trunk, and the resignation of Senator McMonagall. We don't care for politics on this channel, so it's going to play a minor role. Superman steps out for just a few hours, and I would totally believe you if you had told me he smoked the biggest joint of his life. Apparently, he's been gone for 20 years. It's not every day Batman breaks character, so Lois's reporter instincts kick in. Whoever tried stealing the hyperdrive to an alien ship destabilized its core, thereby creating a black hole that would in time swallow the entire planet. The Man of Steel entered the fray, attempting to collapse the singularity until he disappeared without a trace. Lois occasionally finds him holding his breath, something he's got years of practice doing. Superman was indeed able to collapse the singularity at the expense of respawning in the middle of nowhere. He was slingshotting around planets on life support for God knows how long before the scavengers found him. They tossed him onto a nearby planet where he met a kid named Jimmy, if only for a few seconds. The Kryptonian then flew over the border like Trump's worst nightmare, ultimately leading to this very conversation with Victor. The Republic leader informs him this planet is divided between them and the Arcasians he met earlier, or as he prefers to call them, the Zealots. The basis of their society is a voting system, as demonstrated by the Zealots' empty-headed peanut brains choosing to live in a polluted area. As much as Superman wants to help them, his desire to get home is even stronger. Lois has a case of writer's block, and to take her mind off of it, she admires his new suit. Clark is outfitted with a personal survival kit complete with its own ChatGPT. It sounded like a great idea at first, until it wouldn't shut up about how he's made 0 progress in 7 months. Think of it as trying to cross the Atlantic Ocean and you've yet to find a boat. The last son of Krypton suddenly finds himself surrounded by a sea of familiar faces. Either he rides the space dolphins at 10 times the speed of light to somewhere, or he spends another 6 months crawling to the nearest yellow star. Turns out they needed his help as they're stuck in some sort of energy field. Evidently, these dolphins are feasting upon the microorganisms of this planet like an all-you-can-eat buffet, and they refuse to pay, hence the defense shield. They agree to ease off on the electric fence, and the dolphins disappear just as quickly as they came, rendering Superman lost on an odyssey of solitude. The dolphins robbed him of the last bit of his sanity, and it took him 2 whole years to finally get it back by getting it back. It's the costume his mom made for him. Returning to his roots, Clark takes a page out of Batman's playbook, and now he's got a messed up sleep schedule because he insists on performing overnight miracles. He's been doing this for the past 3 years, and one day the Jimmy kid climbs over the border like Trump's worst nightmare, but he's risking it all because of an alien invasion. The aliens turn out to be the scavengers he encountered briefly, and they're here under a contract. Victor. He explains the Zealots voted down every opportunity to advance their civilization because those empty-headed peanut brains are stuck in their ancient beliefs. Even the scavengers agree these people are beyond saving. Regardless of how sadly incompetent they are, the Man of Steel refuses to just abandon them. Fortunately, he won't have to as he's joined by a Green Lantern. Despite Lois's best efforts, it's been 2 weeks and she still finds her husband grasping onto a relic of the past. They force the scavengers back into whatever scary corner of the universe from which they came. At long last, the arrival of his salvation means he can finally put all of this behind him. Except for one small problem. She has no idea what this Green Lantern thing is. The ring's original owner expired before he could show her the tutorial. To put things into perspective, it took him years to take a few steps while she can roam across entire galaxies in just 1 episode of Peacemaker. But all that is useless because her Google Maps is effectively offline. Fast forward to year 8, her name is Hope, and she's hoping for some overnight miracles. While Clark is away on night patrol, Jimmy discovers a way to potentially get Superman back home, and that's when Hope unveils her true colors. She's been lost and alone for so long, she's not about to experience it again. Flash picks up an anomaly headed their way, yet Bruce is more interested in hearing how Clark found his way back. At year 13, the unstable red giant not only threatens to destroy this planet, but is also sucking him dry with each passing day. Despite these conditions, he remains optimistic as always. To prevent this planet from becoming the next Krypton, Superman successfully unites all the world leaders against himself. They unanimously vote him off the planet for sticking his nose into everybody's business like no tomorrow. To Victor's surprise, they renewed their visas for another 6 years. He's all like, "Please bro, your window is closing, what are you still doing here?" In a shocking revelation, Jimmy uploaded his findings that very night, and that's when Hope turns on them. She will not be left alone again. Fortunately, she's got a ring from the 80s, meaning it never got the DLC to overcome its weakness to the color yellow. When he finally does blast off into the temporal anomaly, it looks like another SpaceX disaster. Clark is not about to give up when he's so close, and that's when he feels somebody violating his cape. 3 months in, Lois is desperate to get her husband back, and in that desperation, she turns to the final boss. In theory, the stage 3 cancer she's about to be diagnosed with should shock him back into reality. Nice doing business with you. On the other hand, even the mighty Superman needs therapy. That's why I'm happy to announce that this video is sponsored by— no, I'm just kidding. This Superman goes on to explain that by the time he returned to Earth, decades had gone by. They even figured out a way to reverse climate change, which adversely affected his ability to store solar energy. He even led a resistance against the Terminators, and that's when our Superman calls his bluff. If he's got any real words of wisdom for the main character, it's don't take Lois for granted. Clark enters the temporal anomaly where he's finally rescued by Adam Strange. Lex patiently awaits his demise, but psych, Lois has yet to tell him. Superman tags along for the Zeta Beam Uber ride, which instantly teleports them 4.5 light years back to Earth. At long last, he's finally back. His cousin stretches out his new suit, which is a little weird if you ask me. Supergirl tells him even if he could somehow retrace his steps, they'd be late by thousands of light years regardless. He's home now, it's time to move on. It just occurs to him that Black Adam was once lost for 5,000 years. It's a long shot, but maybe, just maybe, he came across that planet during his voyage. He simply repeats what Supergirl already told him. It's time to move on. Clark later finds out about her pills, along with her extensive call history to the final boss. Lois comes clean, admitting to casually hauling around a slab of lead inside her purse so he wouldn't suspect a thing. By confronting Luthor, he's playing right into his hand, and that'll be the end of them. So how about he fixes their toaster instead? Clark is brainstorming 1,000 ways to cancel Lex Luthor, which only goes to show he's just as human as the rest of us. Lois calls his bluff, demanding he surrender the cure. Surely he's not that evil. Thanks to Bruce's information, Lois finally has this McMonagall character figured out. The man cheated on his wife with an assistant, which not only ended up costing him his Senate seat, but also the new bill. Hopefully it wasn't that important. Bruce returns to their apartment because there's been a development. Remember the anomaly Flash was tracking? Well, it's floating outside their window right now. Right before the SpaceX disaster, she received telemetry data from the ship and stalked him all the way home like a crazy ex. And now they have the location of Victor's planet. Failure to pass McMonagall's bill ended foreign aid, resulting in the collapse of negotiations leading to an all-out war in Cosnia. Knowing full well the League doesn't rig elections, Superman attempts to talk them out of it like a CW show. Oh, and Luthor? Find a new hobby. Lois insists that he goes with the League because sure, Clark Kent is here, but Superman never came back. Lois awakens to Clark and immediately her reporter senses are tingling. What happened was, they time traveled to his first encounter with the scavengers to alter history. That Superman would return to Lois as promised, sans 20 years of trauma as if he never left. Regarding the baby, her species reproduces through parthenogenesis, meaning she got pregnant from Jimmy's hair. Atoning for her sins, this new Jimmy is the first Arcasian born in the Republic, marking a new chapter for their people. The evacuation somehow took 10 years, and by the end of it, he becomes the new gatekeeper to show others the way. If you're still window shopping, what are you waiting for? Subscribe! Insert marvelous outro here, and I'll see you in the next one.